I was gonna title this video, "Is Finn a traitor?" But I think the answer to that question is already pretty clear.
Traitor! Traitor! Wait! Traitor!
My question isn't whether Finn's a traitor to the First Order, but rather the opposite. Is Finn still working for the First Order, and will he turn against the good guys in either Episode 8 or Episode 9? And I know what people are saying. Finn seems to be the perfect archetype of a good guy. It seems pretty clear that Disney and Star Wars are kind of building a bit of a brand towards him and his character. Would they really mess with us by turning him evil, so to speak? Today I'm here to convince you that it's possible. Not that it's likely or that it's definitely going to happen, but it's at least possible. My first argument is that this trilogy will need the "I am your father" moment. A plot twist that completely subverts our expectations and leaves us reeling. And everyone thinks that this is going to be somehow related to Kylo Ren or Kylo and Rey or Rey and Luke Skywalker, but I actually don't think that this is going to be the case. I think that this new trilogy is going to want to stand out on its own in this regard. And I mean, how surprising would it be for the viewer to see Finn turn on the ones that he appears to care about the most? We've seen his connection with both Rey and Poe. I mean, how crazy would it be to see him completely subvert our expectations and turn against them? So that's the first point, but I think you also have to ask the why. Why would Finn do this? And we also know that Finn was instrumental to the destruction of Starkiller Base, so why would he do that? If he were truly a turncoat, wouldn't he somehow interfere with that? Well, I've got two answers to this question, and I'm going to deal with the second one later. Let's just talk about the first one now. So I think Finn's purpose is more important than protecting the Starkiller Base, and I think that him truly being ingrained within the Resistance is more important than protecting a superweapon. And that's because Finn is supposed to find Luke Skywalker, or he's supposed to be around when the Resistance or when Rey, when whoever finds Luke Skywalker. Snoke seems like the sort of person who is less concerned with military domination with fleets and armies than dominating people through the Force. And his main worry seems to be about Luke Skywalker coming back into action. There have been some leaks that Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren will confront Luke and Rey on Ahch-To, and we also know that Episode 8 takes place almost immediately after Episode 7, and presumably Luke isn't on Ahch-To for the entire movie, and if he is, it's still not a long period of time. Luke has been in hiding at the same place for probably a very long time, and despite their best efforts, the First Order has not been able to track him down. What are the chances that they would be able to now, just weeks or perhaps days after the Resistance did, without some sort of dramatic or drastic change? Well, it's pretty low, and I'm going to suggest that change is that now Finn is within the Resistance ranks. And I mean, this makes sense. Finn probably has the full respect and the full trust of the Resistance. And I mean, he helped them blow up Starkiller Base. Actually, he basically told them everything that they know about Starkiller Base. So I wouldn't be surprised if they told him where Luke is. I mean, he didn't go with Rey because he was in a coma, but perhaps he learned about it later, perhaps he passed the message on, who knows. All I'm saying is that the First Order must have gotten this information somehow. Why not from him? The third reason that I think that this theory is at least possible is because Finn doesn't really act like you'd expect a First Order stormtrooper to. I mean, he was top of his class, and he was, heavily indoctrinated by First Order propaganda. He was taught that the New Republic was evil, and he believed it, but he's willing to leave after, one or two traumatic experiences, which you think that the First Order probably would have prepared him for. There's also the fact that despite being a pretty low-level stormtrooper at the time, he had pretty explicit knowledge of the technical specifications of Starkiller Base, and he was able to use those to help them blow the base up. And, that kind of goes back to the idea that perhaps he was helping them to, get into the Resistance, inner circle. There's also the fact that he didn't kill Captain Phasma, obviously a very high-ranking First Order officer, when he had the chance to, and this is despite the fact that not only does he not like Captain Phasma, as evidenced by some of their previous interactions, but that he's not shown any hesitation to kill other stormtroopers. So you hear those reasons, and they do together kind of make some sense, but there are still a few questions that you'd ask. So the first is, well, he doesn't really act like the kind of person who's a turncoat. He does seem to deeply care for Rey, and he fights Kylo Ren with some real serious intensity. This is where the theory gets a little bit wacky. I think that Finn knowingly allowed himself to be brainwashed so he could infiltrate the Resistance, under the guise of a stormtrooper trying to escape the First Order. And I think this would explain why he changed so quickly from someone who was top of his class, indoctrinated by the First Order, to someone willing to leave and to join the Resistance after one mission. If this were true, I could also see this kind of tying in with Finn's coma. So he's injured by Kylo Ren, he goes into coma, perhaps when he wakes up, the amnesia, whatever it was, has worn off and he's now a sleeper agent. This also ties in nicely to the leak we've heard of Finn going undercover in the First Order. Perhaps when he does go undercover, he reveals that he was working for the First Order and he doesn't go back to the Resistance, and then he kind of takes up the mantle of another bad guy. This also explains why Finn would be so willing to blow up First Order base, and when I mentioned earlier that there were 2 reasons, this would be the second reason. He's willing to do so because he doesn't know that he shouldn't. I don't know, guys. All in all, this theory is kind of out there, and I've been mulling it over in my head for a while, and I can't say that it's more likely and not that this is possible, or even that there's a 25% chance that this is possible, but I still think that it's really interesting to think about, and it can actually be grounded within reality and with what we know about Finn and what we know about the Star Wars sequel trilogy up to this point. I will say, though, that a lot of the new media, including some of the new books and The Force Awakens itself, has painted Finn as being a stormtrooper with a good heart, and they've kind of set that up in an interesting way, and I'm not sure if they're necessarily going to interfere with that, because it's already a pretty unique storyline, a stormtrooper deserting his cause. But I mean, it's also possible that he was the top of his class, his instructors pulled him aside, told him about the mission, wiped his mind, and basically set him off, waiting for a chance to infiltrate the Resistance. I don't know, it's all very complicated, and it doesn't really abide by Occam's razor, because it's much more complex and convoluted than you would expect the plot to be. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think of this theory. I'm less interested in whether you think that this is definitely going to happen, but whether you think it's possible based on the framework and the media that we have at this point. Also, let me know whether you would like the surprise, whether it would match the twist of I Am Your Father from The Empire Strikes Back, and whether you really just like Finn as a character. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, may the Force be with you.